Okay, I think I'm going to start because I'm too eager. I can't wait anymore. And then as people join in, they'll catch on. So the first thing I want to say is that this class and the whole day in general is in memory of Mr. Stanley Chera A, sponsored by the Chera Family. And what we're going to do today, so the title of the class kind of gave an introduction. First, of course, I'm going to start off by showing you a few places in Israel, because what would class about Israel be if we didn't see Israel? So we're going to start it with that, and you are going to learn many, many interesting things along the way. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and I know you can't really respond back, so in the chat you can. If anyone has any questions also as I'm going, you could write questions in the chat and I'll answer at the end. So I'm going to share my screen and start with a picture that you're all familiar with, and we'll take it from there. Okay, wait, I didn't share my screen. Hold on. Share screen. Do you see my screen? A picture of my grandma in the background and me? Nod your head if you see. Okay. Now I'm going to do, okay. So we're going to start out with a picture of a place that hopefully a lot of you recognize. It's very popular, specifically for Americans, but as an American and Israeli, I like it equally. If everyone could just mute them, stop, or Stephen, if you can mute everybody, please.
All about it. Come look, it's beautiful.
Steven, if you could just mute everybody, please. Okay. I still hear noise. I don't know who's on. Everyone, if you could just check that you're muted.
I think that you can mute us.
I have to check that they're muted.
No, so Stephen, you could mute everybody. How do I? I don't know.
Don't touch.
Adele,
I got it.
Become participant.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Okay, said it. Muted everyone. No, shoot. Okay, fix that. So we have here Ben Yehuda Street. Many of you probably spend time eating, walking, buying souvenirs. Now, does anyone know how Israelis call Ben Yehuda Street? Because it's very American, and even when we say it as like Syrians, we don't even pronounce it. We don't say Ben Yehuda. We usually just call it Ben Yehuda Street. Does anybody know the way Israelis call it? If you know, you could write it in the chat. I'll wait a minute and then I'll just say. So the way Israelis refer to Ben Yehuda Street is they call it the Midrachav. The Midrachav being combined of two words, Midracha meaning sidewalk and Rechav meaning street. So this is a fun fact, that's how they call this area. And Ben Yehuda Street, up until 1983, cars and buses could actually drive down it, and there were taxi stops along the way. And then in 1983, they decided to close it and make it this outdoor pedestrian mall. That's what the Midrachav means. And before, the way it even came to be is in the British, in December 1917, they got control of Jerusalem. And the British wanted to start focusing on the building outside the old city walls. So they said, we want to make everything nice and new, and they paved the street. Now, how did it get its name? The British originally wanted to name the street after someone British. But then in 1922, Ben Yehuda, and I know I didn't talk about who he is yet, that's still to come, who was someone really famous at that time, he died, and they decided to name the street after him. So that's a little bit about the street. Now, we're going to go on a virtual tour down the street. So here's the sign, Rechav Ben Yehuda. So you could follow the arrow. We're going all the way down the street. I put on the map two places that are popular, Moshiko's Falafel, Katsefet ice cream, and a lot of people get from there, just so you can kind of know where we are. Go all the way down. Now follow where you see the blue dotted line, 6 minutes. Another thing I included on the map, I figured I might as well throw out good recommendations as they go along. Bet Chico, great restaurant, and also amazing historical significance. Next trip to Israel, make sure to eat there. And we're gonna go all the way to where you guys see the yellow circle with like the red. What you're looking at all the way to the end is a new place. Maybe you've been there, maybe not. If not, now you're gonna learn about it. That is the house of Eliezer Ben Yehuda. So you see circled in yellow, that's his door. Eliezer Ben Yehuda, he has two homes in Jerusalem. One is in the Talpiot neighborhood. One is in this neighborhood on Ethiopia Street. Right across from his house is this big, big church. Now, I want you guys to look carefully at the picture because I'm going to zoom in a little bit. See, and I know it's blurry, I'm going to zoom in again. You guys see that to the right of his door, there's this sign circled in yellow. Okay, what's this sign? Now we're going to zoom into the next picture. This is Eliezer Ben Yehuda Street, and I know we didn't discuss who he is yet. Some of you might know, some of you might not know yet. We're going to talk about it. Right next to his door, in the wall, sunken in, you see this sign, and it says Eliezer Ben Yehuda, the years that he lived, and a little bit about him. Now, you might not think this is weird that there's a sign sunk into the wall about him, but this is very weird, and I'm going to tell you why it's very weird. This house is a house that the Israel Houses Antiquities Authority decided is important enough to preserve. Now, in Israel, normally when there's a building for preservation, what they do is they take this blue sign and they put it up near what they want to preserve. Now, if you guys see all the way on the left, it says Ben Yehuda House in blue. This is next to his other house. So he has two houses, two places he used to live. This one he actually never lived in, his family did, but that's why it's in blue. Now, the sign that we saw sunk into the wall should look like this. And if we zoom in a little bit, if you notice every sign, it has, these are just fun facts I'm throwing into general knowledge about Israel. You see that it's circled in yellow. If we zoom in, this is the symbol, anytime they want to save a house, this organization gets involved and they put a blue sign. But how come with Eliezer Ben Yehuda's house, the sign is sunk into the wall? So the reason is because even up until they made the sign sunk into the wall, they had Haredim that would come and they would rip the sign off. Now, why? And every time they came, there was a missing sign. So they'd put the sign on again, and then people would rip it off again, and again, and again, and again, until they said, you know what, we're going to make a very, very strong sign, make it out of fiberglass, unbreakable, stick it into the wall so no one could take it off. Now, why do people keep ripping the sign off of his house? And the reason is because as we start to talk about what Eliezer Ben Yehuda is, and I'll start by saying is he's known as the reviver of the Hebrew language. Not everyone was so happy about that. And even till today, there's not people that aren't so happy. Why? They say Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh. How can you speak Lashon HaKodesh in your everyday needs? How could you just do something like that? And because they were against that idea, they would rip the sign off and then they would put it on into the wall. So that's just one fun fact about his house and a little bit of what was going on. Now, I want to tell you a true story that happened when Eliezer Ben Yehuda was alive. So this is his house, and I want you to picture him coming out of his house. And he sees his friend standing outside of his house, and his friends have this like sad look on his face. So he looks at them and goes, guys, what's the matter? Why are you so sad? And they tell him, look, don't you see? Don't you see what? So you see right now graffitied on, it has the words Nekama. Now this is not an actual example of graffiti from his time because we don't have the pictures of it. But it's to give you the idea, he walks outside and he sees his house is all graffitied and curses and all kinds of things. And the people are upset because they graffitied his house. Because I said today, there's some people that still don't even love him because they think Hebrew should only be when you learn Torah and not when you speak. Back then, also there were people that were against him. And Ben Yehuda sees this and he starts smiling and laughing and he's so happy. We go, what are you happy about? It reminds me of the story of parentheses of Rabbi Akiva on the faxes, which I spoke about the last time. Anyway, he sees this. He goes, this is amazing. What's amazing about it? He goes, don't you see? The graffiti is in Hebrew. That means I've won. I don't care if people don't remember me. As long as it's in Hebrew, I'm happy. So that's just a quick story to introduce Eliezer Ben Yehuda. Now here's a picture of him. People know him as the person who revived the Hebrew language. But it's not really correct because the Hebrew language was never dead. People prayed in Hebrew. People even spoke in Hebrew. There were newspapers published in Hebrew before his time in Hebrew. So it was never dead. But what did he do? And what was the real big change? And why we remember Eliezer Ben Yehuda as
I can't hear the voice.
What he did is he was the first one.
Yeah, no,
wait, 1 second.
I can't hear the voice.
I need a mute. Okay, you guys hear me, right? Okay, good. So what did Eliezer Ben Yehuda do that was so unique and so different? He was the first one to raise his kids in Hebrew. And in his house, the only language spoken was Hebrew. Later on, I'm going to tell you about his son who did not go to school until he was 8 years old. And when he was 5 years old, he sees a group of boys playing and he goes up to them and he says, like very Tanach Hebrew, can I play with you? They ran away. We'll talk later about his son Itamar and what it was like growing up only knowing Hebrew. That was really very, very revolutionary, because when a language is your mother tongue, you need a lot of words. And Eliezer ben Yehuda said, okay, if this is the only language my son is going to know, I need to give him a lot of words. And the Tanakh has tons of Hebrew, but not enough for the modern day needs. So Eliezer ben Yehuda went about writing and inventing a lot of new words, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, this is an article that came out in 1880, which talks about some of the intentions that Eliezer ben Yehuda had. So we have Ben Yehuda Matzir l'chadesh et hadibur ha'ivri. He wants to renew the Hebrew speech. And he says there's two things very important that we need to do. And I think his words are just as relevant and important right now. He says we need to do two things. One is we need to increase the number of Jews in Eretz Yisrael. And two, we have to make Hebrew the language of the people. And so quickly, what do we need to do? We need to buy land in Israel. We need to give it to people that want to work it. And we have to get rid of their language and give them Hebrew. So everyone will have one language. And he says something really interesting, which I really agree with. In blue, he says the reason why we all need to know Hebrew is he believes that the Hebrew language will pour its spirit onto the people. And if you know Hebrew, it's going to make you love the land of Israel and make you want to work the land. Now, I'm going to give two examples of how I really think Hebrew makes you love Israel and God and Torah. One is from modern day. So we see this time for exams. Now, in Israel, when people are in university and they're taking final exams, so I guess just like in America too, although I never really experienced it, but you have an option of when you want to take your final. You can take it in semester one, or you could take option 2 if you fail the first, and you could do the second one. And the way that they call it, every time I hear Israelis talk about it, it makes me happy, because I think it's just so beautiful how they refer it to. Now, they don't think of it like this because they speak Hebrew, but as someone coming whose natural language is in Hebrew and learning Hebrew, I appreciate it. So the way Israelis call like option A and option B to take tests, they call it Moed Aleph and Moed Bet, which I think is so pretty, because when I hear Moed, it reminds me of Chol Moed, and Moed is an appointed time with God. And I feel like it just makes the whole experience so much better, because if you failed your test the first time and you're taking it the second time, because you failed, but the second it's called a Moed, I feel like it takes the sting out of it and it makes it a lot nicer. So that's just I don't know if they agree, but it's my own thing that I just think it's beautiful how they use the word Moed as time 1 and time 2. Another example of how I think Hebrew will make you love Israel is if you look at the screen, you see a picture of Shivat Haminim. Now, when we pick in English, let's say you go apple picking or pumpkin picking or something like that, or cherry picking, it's all picking. But in Hebrew, the Shivat Haminim all have an individual verb to be picked. So I listed them for you. If you're picking olives, you know, the general word is kotef, but you're not kotef zitim, it's mesik. And a lot of these words we have from the Tanach, Basir, and I think it just shows our love for the Perot of Eretz Yisrael, that it's not enough to just say pick. They don't all have their own, some of them share, but the fact that we're giving Shivat Haminim such importance that we're using a different verb for them, it just shows how much we value Eretz Yisrael and the fruit in it, and the Hebrew language is reflective of it. So I think when Eliezer ben Yehuda says, if you speak Hebrew, it's going to make you love the land more, I think that's very accurate. Okay. Now, Theodor Herzl, he is known as a visionary. We credit him a lot for the founding of the state of Israel. He has a book called Medinat Yehudim, and in his book, he wrote everything about how he pictured the future state of Israel would be. He said it's going to be a 6-day work week and you rest on Shabbat. And actually, in his idea of the design of the flag, it's not the way we have it today with 2 blue stripes and a blue star. He thought there would be 6 stars representing the days of the week, and then the 7th star for Shabbat. And he wrote what the people would wear. And he also spoke about the language. And in his book, Theodor Herzl wrote, they're not going to be speaking Hebrew, because come on, if we're really being real, who here knows enough Hebrew that they could order a train ticket in Hebrew? So since in the future state of Israel, they're not going to be speaking Hebrew, what's going to happen is everyone's going to be speaking their own language. And then eventually, whichever language people speak the most, that will become the national language. But it's not going to be Hebrew. And how amazing that Eliezer ben Yehuda, who was a contemporary of Herzl, they actually met. And Herzl writes in his diary about meeting Eliezer ben Yehuda, where Theodor Herzl was such a visionary in so many ways, he couldn't imagine that people would be speaking Hebrew. Where Eliezer ben Yehuda, he said, what do you mean? That's going to be the reality. We see him sitting with tons and tons of books. Eliezer ben Yehuda, he was a real Talmid Chacham. And in order to create words and have them be meaningful, you have to really know your stuff and know your sources. And he knew Tanach, and he knew Gemara, and he knew Mishnah, and he'd be looking up tons of books every time he wanted to create something. I want to tell you a lot of fun facts about his life. One, he had an amazing wife. He had two of them. His first wife, she was sick and died, and they had 5 kids together who all died within a month. So he lost his wife and 3 kids within a month. And then his wife's sister moved in to help with the kids, and he remarried her. And his endeavor to write a Hebrew dictionary and revive the Hebrew language was so valued by both of them that his wife exempted him from all chores. He didn't have to wash a dish, he didn't have to change a diaper, he didn't have to do anything. All he did was work on his dictionary and work on creating Hebrew words, and his wife was really a supporter of that. And he, the sentence, people know about Eliezer ben Yehuda, but when in Israel, so they learn about him, I guess, more than they do in America, because every year they're learning about Yom Haasmaut, they learn about Eliezer ben Yehuda. Someone that's really famous that he is often spoken about is a son named Itamar. And earlier on, I said I'm going to talk about what it was like being raised only speaking Hebrew. So he had no friends until he was 8 and could go to school. Now, think of your children, and some of you might have children that are under 8 years old. Imagine your child never sees any other child outside of his family until he's 8. 8 is 3rd grade. Like, think of the developmental issues that your children would have, and later on in life, it's going to lead to problems, to social issues. So you would think it would lead to all those things. Now, I said when he was 5, he approached a bunch of kids and asked to play with them, and they ran away because they didn't understand the word that he says, and maybe they thought it was weird. But believe it or not, he actually, he grew up to be a man that all the girls wanted, and he had a lot of followers. And I'm going to show you a picture of him. This is Itamar ben Avi. Now, Avi is, again, okay. Right. Avi is Rashi Tevot for Eliezer ben Yehuda. He changed his last name, which was fine because Ben Yehuda was not Eliezer ben Yehuda's original last name either. His original last name was Perlman, and then when he moved to Israel, he changed it. So this is a picture of his son. And when he was 32 years old, this is a really good story. Hold on, I'll stop the screen share for a second. Okay, he's 32 years old, and he's walking down the block. He goes down a street called the Chavat, and out the door, he sees this beautiful young girl, long brown hair, beautiful brown eyes. He talks to her for a few minutes. He goes back home. He knocks on his father's door. His father, of course, is with all his books, and he goes, Dad, I met my wife. So his dad says, Mazal Tov, closes the door, continues back his work. So her name is Leah, and Itamar and Leah, they meet each other, and they decide, we love each other. She's also obsessed with him. Now, I must point out the age difference. He's 32 years old, which is not old, but back then it was really old, and she's 18 years old. And he had a feeling that his mom wasn't going to like her. But he said, I'm going to be proper, I'm going to go, and I'm going to ask his parents. Well, they really only talk about her mother. I don't know about her father, but I'm going to say that I want to marry Leah. So he goes and he speaks to her mother, and she looks at him and she goes, are you kidding me? First of all, you're Ashkenaz. Now, Leah was Sephardic. She was from a Moroccan family. She was of this high social standing. So his mother goes, reason number 1, you can't get anywhere near my daughters, you're Ashkenaz. Reason number 2, you're very sickly. Your siblings died. You're sick all the time. Reason number 3, you're poor. Your dad makes his money from newspapers. You maybe write in a newspaper a little. And number 4, you're old. So you're not marrying my daughter. Now, what should they do? They love each other. Should they just give up? So he says, okay, I'm not going to give up so easily. Maybe they could meet in secret. So then the mom says, oh, okay, you think you're going to meet in secret? And she hires someone to accompany her daughter Leah everywhere that she goes. So now he can't meet her in secret because there's this person watching all the time. Okay, he doesn't give up. He says, fine, I'll throw her a rope from the window. So he tries that, except then the mom hires guards to stand at the beginning of the Rehov Chavateret, so he can't even get there. He says, okay, no problem. I'll write her letters. So he writes her letters, and that doesn't work either because like the mom could just take the letters. So the mom says, you know what, I have to do something. I know, I'll have my daughter marry someone else. And Leah, I could show you, let me share my screen again. I'll show you a picture of her. So this is Leah. She has tons of people that want to marry her. Down the block, there's guys lined up. And Itamar goes to them and he says, guys, there's just no point. She doesn't want any of you. She wants me. And Leah, she's a very proper lady. She meets them all, but she doesn't like any of them. So what should he do? What should he do? He says, okay, I have a great idea how I could still be in contact with her. Why don't I write her love songs in the newspaper? Because after all, his dad's in publishing and he's also involved. So he starts writing her love songs. And guess how long this goes on, him writing songs? For 3 years, he's writing her love songs about how pretty she is and how much they want to be together. And if you, after this class, if you Google search, you could like read the love songs. They're available for us to read. And then after 3 years, and he goes out with other girls, it doesn't work. He says, you know what? Enough is enough. And he writes a poem and he calls it Ekdachi. Ekdach in modern Hebrew means pistol. Actually, I didn't know this, but when I learned this from a different tour guide, she told me the word Ekdach is actually in the Tanach, in Sefer Yeshayahu. It appears once in the whole Tanach. So he took the word Ekdach and like kind of modernized it then, and obviously didn't mean what it means today. And he writes this final poem. He says, I can't take it anymore. I can't. I'm trying everything. And he publishes it in the newspaper. His dad sees this poem, this song, and he realizes that my son is not okay. I can't just continue quietly writing my books. I need to do something about it. So immediately he runs down the block to the school, and there's a Moroccan teacher inside. His name is Albert, and he says, Albert, you need to do something. Please go talk to his mother. My son, he needs to be with her. These kids need to be together. We need to do something about it. So Albert, he agrees, and he goes and he speaks to the mom. And the mom, Leah's mom, they're talking together in the house. And Leah's in another room. She has tears in her eyes, and Albert and the mom are screaming back and forth at each other. And after an hour, Albert comes to Leah. He looks at her. He goes, you want him? And she doesn't answer. She thinks it's some kind of trick. If I say yes, it's going to happen, but I'm not going to say no. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't answer. And then he looks at her again. He says, Leah, do you want him? And she says, yes, I do. And the second the mom hears that, she goes out onto the balcony because she's going to faint because she's so horrified that I want to marry this man. And right away, they run to Itamar. They go, Itamar, don't do anything. She said, yes, you're going to get married. All is good in the world. And if you think of a smooth sailing from that point on, it wasn't. They get engaged in 2 weeks. And now what are the terms of the engagement? So Itamar is not going to get $1 from Leah's family. Not only that, he needs to open up a bank account for Leah, and any money that Itamar makes, he needs to give to Leah. He needs to give everything to her. And to make matters even worse, as they're discussing the terms, who walks into the room? Eliezer ben Yehuda walks into the room and says, and they're only going to speak Hebrew in the house. So not an easy marriage to make work. 2 more years go by because Leah's mom hopes that in the meantime, she's going to wake up from her senses and want to marry someone else, but they still want to marry each other. They get married, they have a few kids, and now I'm fast forwarding a lot of years. So fast forwarding, Itamar dies really young. He dies when he's 64. Leah, I believe, dies in her 80s, so she's a long time without him. And one day, Leah's having a conversation with her grandson, and her grandson says, I don't get it. Why'd you marry him? You could have had any guy you wanted. They all wanted you. You were rich, beautiful, nice, sweet. Why would you marry him? And why would you marry this poor guy? So she goes, first of all, don't you dare call your grandpa poor. Second of all, he might not have had a lot of money, but he had a really, really big heart. So this story should be inspiring for everybody out there. It's really such a great story. And there's actually, I'm going to share my screen is being shared. Okay, good. There's actually, hold on. Okay. There's love songs written about their love. If you go on Google, we have a love song about about their love together. Now, I want to just summarize what we had so far, and then have a few more surprises to show you. We saw a picture of Ben Yehuda Street. We spoke about the British who paved it and named the street. Then we went on a little walk to Eliezer Ben Yehuda's house, where we said that the sign is sung into the wall so people don't rip it off. And back then they graffitied his house, but he was happy as long as it was in Hebrew. And then we also spoke about his son and that he raised his son in Hebrew. And that was unique because you have to continue on in generation, and he was totally encompassed by Hebrew. And then we spoke about the love, a nice little love story of his son Itamar. Now, there's a really, really great quote, which I think summarizes Eliezer Ben Yehuda, which I want to share with you. So before Ben Yehuda, Jews could speak Hebrew. After him, they did. And that is what his impact is. People knew Hebrew, people prayed in Hebrew, but it wasn't the everyday language. And really because of him, it is today. Now, Hebrew is still missing a lot of words. And Eliezer Ben Yehuda, he founded in 1890 this Vaad Lelashon HaIvrit, that this committee, they would create words. And today in modern day Israel, there is, you see on the screen, Academia Lelashon HaIvrit. It's very ironic that they're the ones creating Hebrew words, and they have the word academia, which is an English word. Hebrew is full of English words. We know anytime we have a word with asya, informatia, situatia, it's always an English word that they take. So it's ironic that the Hebrew society has an English word in their title, and on their website they actually address that. So I want to now show you in a few more minutes some words first that Eliezer Ben Yehuda tried to include and didn't work, and some words that are trying to be used today, and we're going to learn a little bit of more Hebrew words. So Eliezer Ben Yehuda, words that didn't catch on. Okay, I'm going to give you a second to try to guess what he meant by it. Noseh anashim. He thought that should be the word for ofanayim, for bicycle. He wanted to call it noseh anashim. Doesn't work because today we use the word ofanayim. Another word that he wanted to use, sach far. That is what he wanted the word for, telephone. So today, telephone is what we use. Now, another word that I want to show you. Words the Academy for Ivrit is trying to push. Now, this word I see in emails that I get, and in news, they use it all the time. So people know it. I just wonder if it's really, really going to work. Does anyone know what the word yisumon means? It's used in Hebrew today, but the word that is usually used instead of yisumon is application, an app. If you want to download an app on your phone, most Israelis, call it an applicatia, but the Academy is trying to push to use the word yisumon. Another fun thing I want to show you. So if you go on their website, they have these articles that come out called Lamed Leshonecha, Learn Your Language, which has a list of words that they are publishing. These are new words. Now, this is from 1999. These words did not catch on. What they want to do for takeaway food, in my entire life, I've never heard anyone use it. What do Israelis call it? Takeaway, with an Israeli accent. Another thing, the word tamli for pie. Israelis just call it pie. And another word, the last one, for pancakes, they wanted to introduce the word chamita. I've never heard used chamita. I just hear they call it pancake. But it's really nice that they try to introduce new words, and there's tons and tons and tons of new words. Now, I've been living here for almost 4 years, and I still learn new Hebrew words. I actually, I became very friendly with a family, with my neighbors that live one floor under me. And you really learn the most Hebrew from little kids. We'll just be playing, and I just learn words from them talking. Whenever they try to teach me a word, it doesn't work. And when we just talk naturally, I learn a Hebrew word. Well, not embarrassed to say but I'm using the word embarrassed, that I learned the most Hebrew from little kid books, so like 2-year-olds. I was reading a 3-year-old a book and I see this word. I'm like, I never knew that word before. How do I not know? So I'm going to share it with you. Does anyone know how to say the trunk of an elephant? I just thought, af shel pia. Like, I don't know. I never really thought of how you say it. And then I'm reading a little kid book and I see the word I'm going to share with you. It's called chedek. That's how you say an elephant's trunk. I'm still learning new words. It's really, really fun. Now, I want this, not connected to Yehuda ben Yehuda, just a book recommendation I want to give. If anyone has not read the book Frindle, buy it on Amazon right now and read it. It is the best book. And it talks about creating new words. And one boy's attempt to create a new word. Very good recommendation, throwing that out there. And now I want to give you guys a challenge in honor of Israel and Yom Haasmaut and Yehuda ben Yehuda. I want you to learn 3 new Hebrew words, any words you want, whenever you want. It's fun to always keep growing. And like Yehuda ben Yehuda says, if we learn Hebrew, then our love for Eretz Yisrael is going to be greater. And for Am Yisrael, and who doesn't want that, especially with Yom Haasmaut coming up. And the last test I want to give you is after you learn these 3 new Hebrew words, I want you to then bring your new words to Ben Yehuda Street. Hopefully, you'll get to come to Israel soon, that they'll open travel, and you'll come with all your Hebrew, and we'll walk down the street, and we'll go together to Ben Yehuda's house and see the sign and learn a lot more things. And thank you, everybody. I had a great time speaking to everyone, and I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed. I miss you all. I miss walking the streets of Eretz Yisrael. I think I'm going to do that now that they made the restrictions a little easier. And have a wonderful Yom Haasmaut and continue learning Hebrew. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Yeah.